All right, Mary, I'll let you get
Perfect.
started.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Mary Anderson. I'm the Director of Career Services. Excited to be with all of you to talk about resume and cover letter writing, which may not sound exciting for you, but it's something I enjoy doing and helping students with. So it is exciting for me. I'm going to share a little bit about career services, a couple events, how to connect with our office. So we're going to start with that. Then I'll move into some tips and strategies for resume and cover letter writing. And then I think it was 4 of you submitted your resume, which makes it really interesting. We just find it's more dynamic. We talk about how to do it, and then we look at do some critiquing together. If for some reason we don't get to all 4 of you that submitted resumes, I'll still send you my feedback out afterwards. So no matter what, you'll get that feedback. As we go through, it's a small enough class, you can either chat it in, so if you have a question, ask the question when you're thinking about it. No need to wait. I'd rather address it when you're thinking about it. You can even unmute. If that gets too distracting, I'm slowing down, I'll just let you know that we need to go back to the chat feature. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully, can you see the presentation now? Yeah, okay, good. So let's see. I want to start, I got to move something around here so I can see it better myself. I want to talk about what we do in our office and who we are. So let me go back to home, slideshow, be easier for you to see from beginning. Okay. A couple things I want to let you know right off is you can submit materials to be reviewed, your resume, your cover letter. The quickest way for you to do that is using the resumes at css.edu. So listen tonight, what we have to offer, tips, strategies, and then when you're ready, you do some updating based on what you heard, and then you could submit it, and we'll give you additional feedback. If you ever have questions, you're like, I really want to connect with you specifically, Mary, that's fine. My email's also on here. If you want to make appointments in the future, careers at css.edu will be the easiest. And then we have lots of good things on our website. So don't hesitate at all to reach out after this with more questions. In our office, in addition to me, Andrea Chartier is our career counselor, and Carrie Taylor Kemp, employer relations. And again, I listed the 2 ways you can reach out to our office. We do lots of different things in our office, and I usually describe it as falling into 3 buckets. So the first is the explore, and many of you have moved beyond this, but it doesn't mean you might not come back to this at some time. So this is generally when folks are saying, who am I? What am I interested in? My skills, my values, my passion, and how does that start to align with majors and career paths? So keep that in mind for now or in the future. Maybe change plans, you can reach out regarding that area. Develop is really what we're talking about tonight. Developing your portfolio of documents related to job search, resumes and cover letters. I'm going to touch on Handshake. I think in the future we'll talk more about things like LinkedIn and interviewing and some other things in this class. So all of those are things that your career services assists you with. And then connecting, this would be you reaching out and saying, Mary, I'm going to be moving from California to Minnesota, or I'm moving from Minnesota to Florida. Can you help me find contacts? Or where should I look for these jobs? What are different fairs I can participate in? So different times in your career path, you'll be reaching out to us for different reasons. You qualify for our services now. After you graduate, you still qualify for our services. 3 years after you graduate, full services. After that, we set up 3 appointments, and if you need more beyond that, we refer you to some community resources. So that might be, oh, you're changing a job in the future, you're applying to graduate programs, you need assistance. So just remember that as you go through your career. Handshake, there's a number of things I'm going to send to Katie afterwards to send out to you. One of the things I wanted to let you know is Handshake is the posting site we use for jobs and internships. It's a nationwide, so no matter where you're sitting right now, you can search by zip code and look for job and internships on this site. We're currently having a challenge for folks who do the first 4 of these 5 steps, and we can do that remotely. That's no problem. You'd let me know that you're done with those first 4 steps. I'm going to put you in to the drawing. We're drawing for our Saint shop, which you can buy virtually on there as well. So you could get a sweatshirt or a coffee mug or a branded face mask. They have all kinds of great things in the Saint shop right now. So the reason we want you to do this is because if you go through these first 4 steps, it shows that you're actively working on your job search or on an internship search. Employers can find you, you can look for jobs. So we're just giving you some reason to add this to your to-do list, which is probably long, but sometimes prizes motivates all of us, right? So we have a chance of winning something. The steps we're asking you to do will probably take you 10 minutes. Second step is once you're done with your resume, you can upload it on Handshake and it fills in all kinds of other fields for you. But the challenge is really just getting those first 4 steps done. So I'm going to send you the checklist as well as the quick challenge. You can work on that on your own. Reach out to me if you have questions. Okay. Next, I want to talk about, before we get into the resumes and cover letters, we have 4 virtual job fairs coming up. And I want to highlight 2 of them for you to keep in mind to see if it's something you might be interested in. The first one, which comes up really quick, is Friday, September 25th. It runs from 12 to 4, and it's put on by the Minnesota Private Colleges. This one is sort of what I'd say a virtual job fair focused on very specific industries. And so I actually want to get off here and show you. Can you still see it should say student information? Yep. So this fair, I want to go to the student information and who's going to be at the fair, because this is what you should use to discern if you want to attend a job fair or not. So if I list all the organizations that will be there, and I scan through this before the presentation tonight, I think there's 2, maybe 3 that would be particularly interesting for you all. So EPIC will be there. So if you're interested in being on that side of HIM, take a look at what they're looking for and if that's interesting to you. United Health Group, I know some of our alums have worked for them in the past, so they're going to be there. And then I think there's a couple recruiting firms. I don't even know how you say this one. I think it's Calabera, and they do IT recruiting. If this looks appealing to you and you're like, yes, I would like to attend that fair, I want you to email me directly because I'm going to assist you in registering and assist you in preparing for that particular fair. But I don't want to spend a lot of time with the whole group because it might only be 1 or 2 of you that is interested. It's free. You do need to register ahead of time, and you have to have a resume done that you upload as part of the registration process. So keep that one in mind. If you're interested, reach out to me right now or after the presentation. Say, yes, I'd like to learn more. Can you help me get ready for that particular fair? Okay, the other fairs that come up would be the Head Lakes Job Fair. This one, probably you're not going to be that interested in. The government and nonprofit job fair, you can look to see if there's organizations there. And then the Saints Health Career Fair, this is another one. If you're from Minnesota, I think you might be interested in that 4th fair because Essentia and St. Luke's and Mayo and maybe some others will be there. So I'm going to send this entire poster out to all of you. It's clickable links so you can go in and see who will be attending each one of those. The one I'm worried about now is the 25th because it comes up so quickly. The others we have plenty of time to talk about, and you can think about whether you're interested in them. So each one of them you can look to see who's going to be there. They are all free. You do have to register for all of them through our office, and then we can get you started. Let me pause. Any questions on the fairs to start with? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How often do those fairs come around? Are there certain times of the year?
Yeah, that's a great question. These 4 fairs, I take that back. The top one is the very first time we've done that fair, and they anticipate that we'll continue to do it. The other 3 happen every fall. So if you're like, this is great, but I'm not ready for this until next fall, or the following fall or the next fall. Yeah, they will come about every single fall. The spring semester, we have another Head of the Lakes job fair. We have a Minnesota Private Colleges job fair, and then an education fair, which wouldn't necessarily impact you. So every semester there are different fairs. Yeah. Any other questions? So when you're thinking about looking for jobs or internships, fairs is one way to look for jobs. Going directly on great posting sites like Handshake, and you'll find others that you like. That's another way that you'll want to look for jobs and internships. The third is doing this networking, this connecting with people, with alums, with people that are working at organizations that you're interested in. Your faculty can help you make those connections, but we would also be willing to help you try to make those kind of connections. And then of course you're going to go directly to a specific organization's website to see what they're posting. So multiple ways that you want to be. You don't want to just choose one. Try all of those and at different times. Okay. Okay, are you ready for the excitement of resume writing? I'm assuming lots of you have a draft. You've applied for jobs in the past. I know several of you submitted things, so this isn't a brand new concept to you. But I do think it's helpful to pause as you're writing for the first time or updating to think, what is it? What is the goal really for each one of these things, and how are they similar and different? Resumes or curriculum vitas are really the summary about you, the facts about your skills, your education, and your experiences. Resumes is what we will be talking about tonight. They are generally 1 to 2 pages. A CV or a curriculum vitae is what you would generally use for academia. You're going to apply to be a faculty member, or sometimes for research positions. They're longer. They have more details about courses you've taught and research and papers you've co-authored. So you might need that in the future, but tonight we're really focused on resumes. Cover letters ends up being really your narration that goes along with your resume. So it's saying why you're interested in a particular organization or a position and why they should bring you in for an interview. So you have to be careful that it doesn't just duplicate what's in the resume, but rather is a narration to it. Personal statements, if you apply for graduate schools in the future, they often require these short essays. They're usually 1 to 3 pages where you're really demonstrating the ability to be successful in a graduate program and why that fits your career goals. Some of you might be doing portfolios as part of a program or because you want to. Portfolios are more of a collection of artifacts. So sort of showing the experiences. You might have a snapshot of a review by your supervisor. You might have a big project you worked on and you want to showcase that, not just by writing about it, but with the ability to show it. So keep in mind all 4 of those. In all cases, they are an example of your writing and communication skills. So that's why we want you to start now, spend time with it, make sure you can have several people review to give you feedback. We don't want typos or errors. So in lots of ways you can get feedback. One is from our office, but from other folks too. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. So the length of the resume, we really suggest 1 page for new grads, 2 pages for some fields. I think HIM is one field where you might be able to go on to 2 pages if you have enough to justify it. So don't feel like you should add just a bunch of sort of junk in there to go to 2 pages because you think it makes you look more impressive. If you do go to 2 pages, make sure you have your name again on the 2nd page. We find the more sort of conservative, not politically, but the conservative the work environment, the more traditional, the more likely they want 1 page. If you're applying to healthcare or a nonprofit, more likely they're willing to look at 2 pages. So if you're applying to United Health Group or Epic, I bet they want 1 page. If you're applying to a hospital setting or an education setting, they would be willing to look at 2 pages. Just make sure that the most important information falls on page 1. Page 2 would be more of the supporting information or information that is not quite as related to your field of study. Readability is really important. I said 30 seconds here. As I was preparing, I just read something that said it was 6 seconds is how long an employer will glance at your resume at first shot, which is always kind of frustrating because you put like hours into making it look pretty and perfect and check and recheck. They will spend more time on it if they're interested. So if they find it's a good fit, know that they will spend more time, but it's at first glance. So you want to make sure you construct it in a way that someone could take a 30-second look at it and get a good sense of who you are. Given that, we would suggest bullets over paragraphs, 10 font size or larger, 10 or 11 is the most common. Margins generally 1 inch, although your top margin really can rise a little closer to the top. I think you can get away with a 1/2 inch margin because it's more like your letterhead up at the top. I would use some bold and cap and underlying italics to break up the text. It really guides the reader through your document, but don't overuse it that it becomes, I don't know, too much, and you'll be able to get a sense of what that looks like. And do it consistently. Maybe you always bold your title and italicize the name of the organization. Make sure you just do that consistently all the way through. Okay. The sections, now each one of you might have slightly different sections based on your background, but these are the standard sections that someone might have. And maybe not even all of these. These are just the ones that could be on there. So I'm just going to go through each one of these pretty briefly, highlight the things that I think you most need to know about each of the sections. Before that, what not to include on the resume. So if you apply abroad, you're going to another country, you're going to apply someplace else, know the rules are different. In the US, no height, weight, age, or picture. Stay away from hobbies and social interests. The employers are like, nope, we don't want to know about that. Stay with the professional information. Be cautious about what I would say sensitive areas, religion and politics, unless it's related to the job you're applying for. No abbreviations unless it's widely known in your field, which you do have some abbreviations in your field that you might be using. States can be abbreviated. You can skip things like, I was responsible for. Just cut that all out and jump right into the action verb. It will save you space. Even though it doesn't feel like a full sentence, it's acceptable on the resume to start that way. And of course, it all has to be honest. You see things in the news about people who've gotten caught lying on their resume, and it's, reason to fire you. You could get to choose what you include on the resume, but everything you put there should be honest and verifiable. Okay, the first part up at the top is going to be your name and contact information. I want you to have that big, bold, I would say 18, 20, 22 font size. If you're going to put your resume and post it out to some like general sites, like you're going on Indeed, I would take away your mailing address, protect your privacy. If you're submitting it directly to Mayo Clinic, then you can have your mailing address. You know it's going to a real specific hiring manager. If you're using LinkedIn now or in the future, I would list your LinkedIn URL on your resume. And I would use a format that's sort of eye-catching because you're going to start to use it at the top of lots of different documents. You'll use it at the top of your resume and your cover letter and a thank you note and a reference page. So you're really crafting your own personalized letterhead to use up at the top. Be thoughtful of two things. The email that you use, so you can use your CSS email, that's good for a lifetime. You can use a personal email, just make sure that it's professional in nature. So if you're still using, the email you created when you were in 7th grade and it's, basketball star 29, you probably don't want to use that anymore. So change that to something just professional, your name, first and last name. Also, this sounds silly, but be aware employers are telling us if they are calling you to set up an interview, they want to make sure it's really you. So use a outgoing message on your cell phone. Some people don't set those up or they don't list their name. When you're looking for a job, even if you don't want it later, do set that up. So if I call you, I get a message on your cell phone that says, your name, please leave a message. Okay, I would suggest after that, that your next section is education. I think probably all 4 of you that submitted had your education after your experiences. So you list experience first and education second. This all depends. I'm going to say that. So I'm going to give you my opinion. Of course, other people might give you slightly different opinions. The reason I want your education at the top is I think probably the degree that you're pursuing right now is the reason why you might be looking for a new job. So you're looking for a promotion or you're looking for positions that now require the degree you're pursuing. So you want them to see right up front, I just finished this. This is why I'm applying for the promotion or the new position. You only need to list education for places where you received a degree. If you just took a few courses somewhere, you don't need to list that on your resume. If your GPA is above a 3.0, I think it can be a selling point. You can list it on there. When you list the college out, this is why I have this last bullet here. It officially has the word "the" capitalized in its ST period. Will an employer care? Maybe not, but we just want you to try to have that consistent all the way through. What else do I want to say? No high school information anymore, only things that are college and beyond. Oh, and the other thing is you don't need to list every single even degree you received if it's something totally not related. You might start dropping some of that off because you're really thinking through the employer's eyes. What do they want to know about me that is related to this very specific position I'm applying for? The next section after that, then we'd move into your experience section, and you're thinking about listing bullets under those experiences, and the experiences would be listed the most recent to the least recent, so it's reverse chronological order. Your bullets are going to start with action verbs. If it's something you're currently doing, you'd be using present tense of that verb, and if it's something from the past, it would be past tense. You're listing dates of employment. You don't need like the actual day, like the 15th of October 2012 is when I started this job, just like October, 2018 to present. I generally spell out the month. Sometimes you'll see people use the numeric equivalent, so you might say 10 of 2018. I just find it easier as the reader if you actually write out the month. Preference, not a requirement. We will talk a bit more in the end of the presentation about how to really write effective bulleted statements. This is the biggest challenge. First is the general format. How do you write really good bulleted descriptions? And then how do you start to tailor for your specific field or the specific job? Most of you are to the point where I'm going to suggest that you start splitting out your experiences so that it's not just one big laundry list of experiences that you've had. Rather, you have a section called relevant experiences or healthcare experiences or health information management experiences. And then you're going to have another section called supporting experiences or other experiences. The reason why it helps people to pick you, they see you have experiences in the field. And this is where you will add more bullets, more descriptions versus the supporting experiences are really like what make you unique. Here's a few other things I've done. You might not even use bulleted descriptions, or for sure you would use less bullets in the supporting experiences. Okay, when we go back and we think about the relevant experiences, you're thinking about things that were internships, full-time positions, sometimes even volunteer projects. If you take away the word work and you're just saying relevant experiences, it also allows you to include both paid and unpaid positions there. Okay. Okay. Objectives and summaries. This is really challenging, and I still hear mixed reviews from employers about whether these are helpful or not. This will be at the top, and some of you had these when you submitted, so we can look at a few together. If you include, what I do hear consistently is you need to make it pretty concise. You want to stay away from general skills that maybe would be proven later in the resume. You might use it to explain why you're transitioning to a new field. It's helpful if your degree and your experiences might be a little bit different than what you're currently applying for. So when I'm saying avoid those general things, this would be things like strong communicator, looking for positive environment to utilize my skills and allow progression of work, blah, blah, blah. The reader stops looking at it. So instead you'd want to say professional with 10 years experience in healthcare environment, seeking opportunities to apply recently or new degree in health information management. So you're really getting down to the details. Or it can be even one line, seeking health information management coordinator position at St. Luke's Hospital. So it cannot be that specific, or more about what you're bringing, but not the flowery language or those general skills. Those you want to prove in the bullets below. Prove that you have strong communication and attention to detail in the bullets that come later. Okay. References do not need to be on your resume. You don't even need that line that we used to always include references available upon request. Employers like, yep, I know when I ask, they'll provide it for me. So skip listing it on the resume. And it would be a separate sheet of paper or separate document, usually 3 to 4. And it's folks who supervised you, advised you, taught you, coached you. And you would list their name. I know this is really small. I just wanted you to see sort of the format of it. The name of the person, their title, usually an email or phone number. It's actually really nice if you have a one-liner on there about how this person knows you. So supervisor for 5 years and name of the employer. Instructor and faculty advisor in the name of the program. So just a sense of what that could look like. Okay, again, I don't expect that you can see these, maybe you can on your computer, but it's more about the look of it. So just some samples of what the format can look like. So this one, you can see they split, they have their name, and then it's supporting, it's relevant experiences, and they have a number, and then supporting experiences, they're listing 3 other jobs. Using bullets, they have the dates on the right. So just as a snapshot, what that could look like. This one, the person does not have as much experience in the field, which is fine. So they're showcasing their other experiences and making sure the bullets are focused on transferable skills. So they have experiences, they have activities, they did include some certifications up at the top there. Bullets all the way through. They bolded where they worked because probably it seemed more impressive than the job they actually had. Okay, that's another look. This one, the student included some conferences and certifications under education. They have relevant experiences, they have supporting experiences. They chose a different header called leadership experiences at the bottom. So again, each one of you can think about your own circumstances. What are the positions? What experiences do I have? What are the categories that might make the most sense for you? This one has a lot more white space on it because the person didn't have as much experience. As you gain more experience, you don't want all that white space. That's not a good use of the page. This one included computer skills, and I actually would highly encourage all of you to have a section called computer or technical skills where you're showcasing database systems, electronic records that you've used, even basic Microsoft products that you've used, because a lot of the positions will be asking for that. Okay, so no one right look. You decide what you like. I'd encourage you not to use templates as you go forward because you're going to find them frustrating when you want to do formatting changes. So it's not that you can't use them. And if you choose to use one, just make sure it's one that gives you authority over changing the format around. Okay, so that's the first basics. What do I include? What should it look like? The second stage of writing really strong resumes is having really good bulleted descriptions. To do that, you want to move away from tasks, because what people often do is want to just list what they did on the job. An employer wants to know not necessarily what you did, but what you did well, what did you improve, what were the skills, can you quantify? So think about where you got positive feedback from others. Think about things that you excelled at, things where you did make improvements. Think about the skills you used in order to do those things. Always start with an action verb. You can just Google great action verbs for resumes and you'll get many, many, many to pick from. They are also helpful for you sometimes in brainstorming what you actually did in the job. So you're like, that's right, I did improve something. I did manage people. I did some budgeting. I should include that. I did training. I should put that in. So it's also helpful just for you to brainstorm all the different skills you used in different positions. Again, skip the my duties included or I was responsible for. Try to avoid generic terms like stuff, many, a lot, awesome, love, got, good, and change those to things that are more descriptive. So here's some examples. A couple of people had, or this person had bulleted descriptions. They were on a call line. This is fine. They start with an action verb. But if you can add numbers in, all of a sudden you get a much better sense of what the person did in that position or the scope of the job. And then sometimes you're adding things like, not only did I do it, but I appropriately did something. I used attention to detail. I offered solutions. So you're moving to that next step of how you did something well. Here's another one for you to think about. You could say, you know, I think this was a social work student, but you can see the transition. I met with lots of different types of people. Or I served over 50 clients from diverse backgrounds, ages, and education levels. Or you skip the I and you say, well, what was important? It was that I built rapport. And it wasn't just that they were different, it's that I could tailor my approach to effectively serve 50 clients, blah, blah, blah. So that's the progression of bulleted writing. So you start with the idea. That's where we all start. Okay, how can I make it more descriptive? How can I make sure I'm including the skill as I go through there? Now, you're not going to include numbers for every single one, right? That would get cumbersome to do that, but you're going to think about the ones where adding a number helps with the description. Always keeping that focus. Now, here's the challenge for you is bulleted descriptions are usually 1 or 2 lines. You don't want to get more than that. So you're trying to keep it concise and descriptive at the same time. But that's where you do it. You send it in. We give you some feedback. You have your best friend read it who's an English person. You have someone who works with you to make sure you're catching things that are specific for the field. And you need several eyes on it as you go through. Okay. Third step is now you're tailoring it specifically for the job. So you want to think through in your field, what is language that is really common that you need to incorporate? How do you include that? How do you demonstrate your ability to be able to perform a specific job? So the focus for you all might be talking about supervision or training or management or projects or initiatives that you've taken from beginning to end. It might be showcasing that you've worked in a particular setting in healthcare or nonprofit or government. It definitely could be utilizing those technical skills. How did you use those? What did that look like? It might be having a section about additional certifications or professional development that you've done or that you're part of. So here's what you'll want to be doing as you move forward is like, this is great, Mary, I've updated my resume. It's a month from now and you're applying for a specific position. I want you to take that specific position and read through the job description with a highlighter, a pen or pencil, or even online, however you want to do that, and start highlighting all the skills you can see that they've listed in their job description. Then you go back to your resume. Did I actually show that I have those skills? So perhaps you notice that 3 times in the job description they talk about working as part of a team or working collaboratively. It's like, well, I've done that, but I didn't choose that language when I wrote my resume. So how can you go back and tweak and adjust to make sure that you highlight the same skills? And I don't mean tweak like go back and add things that aren't truthful, but rather how do you take what you know you did and use the same language as the employer is using? Okay. This is hard. It's hard to take feedback. And I think one of the hardest pieces of feedback I give when I'm doing resume critiques is I'm having you take some things out of your resume. That doesn't take away that you had that experience. So don't take it like, oh, but that I worked at that job for 5 years and she reduced it to 2 bullets, right? That's tough. But again, often less is more on a resume. If you add too much, they're just not going to read it at all. You can use those job descriptions in an interview, but you really have to be concise when you're going through and writing the resume and thinking about what they'll actually read. It's also really important for you to remember, and I sort of mentioned this earlier, you can ask 5 people and you might get 5 slightly different opinions about it, which can be frustrating. In the end, it has to be your document, something you're proud of, something that you feel like you've written and reflects you. But you do need to be able to say yes to, is it easy to read? 30 seconds or so. Really informative and descriptive, meaning it's moving beyond just a task list. No mistakes, and everything's honest and truthful. So you take feedback to 5 different people, you make it your own, and you double check that those 4 things you can say yep, 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 and yep. Okay. Let's pause there before I jump into cover letters. We will review some of your resumes, but let's pause. What questions do you have thus far? Anything coming on chat? No?
Mary, I have a question. This is
Yes.
Sharon Taylor. What do you recommend we do if we have gaps, like in employment? What's your take on that?
Yes, that's a great question, and employers will look for that. So often I would have you address that in a cover letter. So you might, there's a couple different answers to it, and we could also talk offline if it's more complicated than this. So in a cover letter, you might say, after working for 10 years, I stayed at home to raise a family and then returned to the workforce in addition to completing new education, blah, blah, blah. So you just tell them what it is so they don't make up their own story about why you have a gap. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is if there's a gap and you were actually doing some volunteering at that time, then you can include some volunteer experiences in there, and they probably be like, okay, she wasn't working, but was, contributing to her community during that time. I'd also be prepared in an interview to answer that question. So you might be asked, Sharon, I see here that from 2010 to 2018 you weren't working. What was going on during that time? I mean, they might ask you that directly, so being prepared to answer, yep, here's what was happening, here's the skills I was developing, I'm really excited to be re-entering the workforce, or I added this education on. Sometimes education also fills in. Maybe you didn't have a job for 5 years, but you were pursuing education. They would also expect that. Does that help, or do you want to share anything more specific? And again, you can email me too with specific questions.
No, I don't mind discussing it. I had a son who was sick for a couple of years.
Yep.
And then I started going to school. I started at junior college and worked my way to St. Scholastica for the remainder of that gap time.
Yep. Yes, so I would, on a resume, I think you're going to have your education. That's going to explain what you were doing during that period of time. You might have relevant experiences down below. You'll have additional experiences where you highlight some other things you were doing. But in a cover letter, I think you could say, during the last 7 years, I have been pursuing additional education, starting with my associate's degree, leading up to a bachelor's degree, maybe highlighting some of the things you're learning from that. I think you could also say, I took a step away from the workforce to take care of family for 3 years. But during that time, I also did these things. Or during the last few years, I've done these things. So I'm guessing mostly that will come out in a cover letter for you.
I see. Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
So, Mary, we have Sarah just wanted to thank you. She has said the information has been very helpful. And then Rhonda's asking, she said, I've seen the professional objectives as long as 3 to 4 sentences. Should it only be one sentence?
So there's two different ways to do it. If it's a true objective, I would say one sentence, seeking HIM coding coordinator position, blah, 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 site, one sentence. If it's more of a summary, I think you can go as long as 3 sentences. But again, keep it really concrete, not the fluffy, vague skills that, like, yeah, any of us can say we're team players and strong communicators. So make it, you can go as long as they would say 3 sentences.
She
Okay.
said, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Cover letters I'm going to be much more brief on. Not that they're less important, but there's just a little bit less to them, if that makes sense. There's not all the intricacies. Again, it is a sales pitch for who you are that goes beyond just the facts. So you get to either include some specific ways that you're connected to the organization and why you're interested in them, why it's a good fit. I think you are also pulling out some things to showcase why they should bring you in for the next step. Typically, it's only 3 to 5 paragraphs. It's really only 1 page long. Again, 11 or 12 font size. Distribute that evenly over the page so it doesn't all rise too far to the top and you have this big white space at the bottom, so make sure you spread that out. I know this cartoon image seems a little silly, but it actually really quickly shows you what the format should look like. It's single space, double space between paragraphs, everything's flush left. You can use a personalized letterhead up the top. So whatever you created for your resume, maybe you're using it at the top of your cover letter. If not, you would just be including your contact information up at the top, just your address and name. I think the most important thing, and we do see this sometimes, is someone uses their personal, not a personal letterhead, they're using their company's letterhead and now they're applying for a different company. Don't do that. So create your own personalized letterhead at the top there. It is best if you can find a real person to address it to. And if you know gender, if that's something obvious, you can say dear Mr. or Ms. You can do first name, last name. If you know the title, doctor or professor, you can do that as well. If you just can't find that, then I would do dear hiring manager or human resources manager or search committee. I like that better than to whom it may concern, which isn't wrong. I just like these better. So that's how you would address that part. And then these paragraphs, again, it's really you saying why them, why you, and what the next steps could be in that process. But this is the place where, like Sharon, that you might include a little bit more information about your background. And so if you want to draft that up at some point, I can review it and give you some feedback. And all of you, we can give you feedback. The why them, often you're digging into their mission, their values, what they do, if you've worked there before, if you know people, their reputation. So convince them that this isn't a generic cover letter that you've written to 25 different organizations, that you actually have paused to say, I want to work for you in this position or in this department. The why you, I think I would focus on, again, you look at the skills they're looking for, but you're bringing in things about your eagerness to learn, your technical background, your professionalism, years of experiences, project management. So again, they'll see some of those details, but you can flush that out in a way, in a cover letter that you don't really do in a resume. The other thing I'd say is sometimes here, I got to put this on slideshow. it's a lot of information, right? And you're like, okay, I can do this. And then you might be like, oh, nope, I still need some help on this. Like, I've written resumes before. And then you're like, oh no, this is different. I need to update and think about the new field I'm going into. And that's what we're here to do, all of us. We want to make sure you know that you're not alone in this process, the faculty, the staff in our office. And so don't hesitate, small or big questions, to reach out to us for that kind of assistance. Okay, I'm going to pause again before we look at some real examples, because I think it really will make it come to life when you see how we adjust some of these around. Any other questions? While you're doing that, I'm going to pull up my folder so I can get it ready to go here. This is when it was not working. And no, I don't want that. Okay, we're going to jump in. So what I'm going to do is show you Anne and Elise and Sarah, and I don't remember that, and it doesn't have the person's first name. Miss Wins, I think.
I think it was Tao.
Tao, okay,
Yeah.
Tao's. So we will look, I'm going to show you first, except for Lisa's, everybody else, I'm going to show you what they submitted and have you take a quick glance from what you heard me say, from what you know, and perhaps one or two of you will gently and kindly say to the person, here's some things I notice, right? And then I'll show you what I would send back to that person for feedback as well. So let's start with Anne. Okay. So this is Anne on the line? I guess I didn't look. Yes. Yes, I see you there. Yep. Okay. So we're going to start with Anne. So this is what hers looks like right now. And I'll kind of scroll through it. At first, I don't need you to be reading every single bullet, but rather, what do you notice? Quick glance. So you can, it's left, right here. So here's the first page, page 2, 3 and 4. I know if some of you are looking on a phone or iPad, this is going to be small, but those of you who can see. What do you notice right off? And Anne, you've probably already been scribbling things that you want to change yourself. I mean, in some ways it's not fair, right? Like, submit it, then we'll tell you all the things we think you should do, and then we're going to critique. But who's willing to jump in and say a couple things that you notice right off that you might suggest as feedback or updates for Anne?
Oh, God.
I would probably just try to, there's so many great skills and so much great experience on it. I would try to just make it more concise and kind of bring it down to a shorter style, which can be really hard to do when you have so much great information. That's my first thought.
Oh, that's great feedback. Like, you have amazing experiences that are really relevant to the field that you're going into, which is exciting. But how do we get that down to probably 2 pages? And maybe, so let's think about that. In the skills section, we can reduce this. I would really say your skills, focus on just technical skills there, because you're going to prove down below that you can multitask and work independently and strong communication skills. You're going to show that in your bullets. So I think you could really cut that section down.
Okay.
Someone else maybe jumping in.
Mary, on the chat, Sarah just said maybe too much information.
Like overall, I mean, right,
Yeah.
here's the place where it's like, it's hard to take away, because I'm sure you worked hard at every single one of these things, both your education, right? And the experiences. But if it's too much, then people are like, oof, I'm overwhelmed. So being smaller with it, smaller with the amount of information actually is more effective. Okay, let me show you. One way I give feedback, and I'm going to show you several ways that I give feedback to people. One is I actually start moving things around for you so you have the visual of what it looks like. So for you, I would, again, my preference is to move the education and training up here. And I think I cut out some of your education that seemed, from my perspective, less related. You go in and you decide if that's true. And then your objective, you're going to make a little bit more specific when you have a position in mind. I really cut this skills section, just like several people suggested, way down. I did relevant experience, your billing, your intern, your professional practice, another billing, and then these other two, supporting experience. Let them know you've worked in these two jobs. You could delete it all together, but if I see that, even if you don't have bullets, I'm like, okay, she knows customer service, how to work in a fast-paced environment. I bet she's dealt with crabby people before. So without you even having to tell me that, I know the kind of skills you probably gained from those areas. Activities and honors, you still have room for that. You could move these potentially under education instead, but it's also okay to list it here. And it's kind of nice. It's sort of icing on the cake that comes at the end of your resume. Like, not only did I do these things, I do things really well when I, right?
Yeah.
And then I give you some prompts in here, like, tell me a little bit more about what skill you use to do that. So instead of saying, let me give you an example, handle collections and unpaid accounts. Instead, maybe tell me how you did that, or the skills that you had to use to do that really well, or the purpose of it in some cases.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, it's sort of like elevating those bullets beyond just here's what I did to here's what I did well.
Mary, Sarah was wondering if you could merge the billing together. She just said she noticed there were two different parts for billing.
Yeah, so like are you referring to like the internship and then the specialist?
Maybe that's what she means. Yeah.
You know, that's a really great question.
Yes, she said.
Yes, okay. Yes, and maybe I'm going to answer that. I do have people do that sometimes where let's say you've actually had a medical billing specialist position at two different locations. You might say that, and you'd say Chevy Chase Surgical Associates and the dates, and right below it you might put Metropolitan Neuro Ear Group and the dates, and then they have shared bullets underneath of them. So there are times when that really makes sense. It's like I had almost the exact same position at two different locations, so I'm going to put them together and share the bullets. So I do think that's a great idea. Sometimes it's hard with an intern because the internship you're not at the same level. You're really just doing entry level. So I think in your case, I don't know if it would work to merge, but in others it could.
Mary, I just have a question. So she noted her internships that she did at other colleges, and she'll be doing a professional practice experience here.
Mm-hmm.
So once that is complete, should she get rid of the other internship information, or?
Yeah, that's a great point. You could either get rid of them altogether because you've now been working in higher level positions. If you felt like I'd like to keep it on there because now I'm applying at Metropolitan, you might list it under supporting experiences. So it allows you to still list that you had an internship there, but you're not putting bullets because you're actually now in positions that are higher or utilizing those skills in a professional way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or you really go down to one or two bullets.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really wanted to keep the medical billing intern, I bet you could really summarize that in about 2 bullets now. So
okay.
Yeah, get rid of it, 2 bullets, put it under
Okay.
supporting experience.
Okay.
I mean, this is the hard thing when people ask questions. It's often, well, it depends, and what else do you have, and what does it look like? So I'll walk you through all the different options there. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's go to Sarah's. I think it's Sarah, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm remembering your name. Okay, so this was Sarah's when she submitted it. So again, I'll give you a glance at it.
Mary, could you make it? Could you make it a little bigger?
Oops, too big. How's that? Is that better?
Better. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to scroll through it once so you can see the whole picture. Go back up. Okay, so again, as you look at that, in kind and gentle ways, what kind of things might you share with Sarah to consider? If someone wants to jump in.
Sarah already said she'll move her education to the top.
Yeah, right. And again, you're going to hear some people who say, nope, I want to see your experiences first, or maybe 5 years from now, you're going to put it back to the bottom again because you've been, now your experiences are more important than that education. What other things might you notice? I mean, on here, I think even with education, you can get rid of your high school information. You have an associate's degree here. I don't know that you even need that because I think the other things are more related.
Mary, Tracy was wondering if professional affiliations was recommended, if that's something you should include.
I would say yes, with the caveat that if you joined a HEMA only because your faculty member told you you needed to do that, but you haven't actually been involved or gone on their website or done anything with it, then don't put it on there. But if you can answer the question in an interview, if I said to you, oh, it's great you're involved in a HEMA, what have you done so far with the organization? And even if it's as minimum of, I love the website, I've used the career section, I use the job section, I like seeing what the biggest topics are in the field right now, that's enough. So if you have that kind of answer, I would include it. It shows commitment to the field that you're going into. Now, if you change fields and you're not doing anything related to this, then you drop it. So if it's related to the job you're applying for, I would include it. And then in the future, maybe you present at a conference or you're in a leadership role, you do some training within that organization, you could even highlight some of those things. Katie, would you say the same thing from your
Yes.
perspective?
Yep,
Okay.
I agree. Sarah says here, for my coding, I have to have credits through AHIMA. And so that's the reason she kept it. So for her credentials, yeah.
Yep. So you can even be talking about, it's an important part of the credentialing process, but also, as I've gone through, I've realized how many great resources and what an active organization this is. I hope to stay involved in the future. Yeah, think through how, in fact, jumping ahead to interviewing, every bullet you have on your resume, you want to think about what is the story that goes along with that? That in an interview, if I asked you, I see that you said that you reviewed insurance payment plans. Can you tell me more about which payment plans you were working with at the time? What's your perspective on the best way to, whatever it is, that you have a story that goes along with it? Okay, let me go back. I think on yours, Sarah, I'm showing a different way that I edit. Sometimes I will just put comments in and track the changes and send it to someone. So I just wanted you to see a different way that I might provide it. So, responsible for, I thought, boy, I think you really can skip that and just jump right into the action.
I would also say, Sarah, if you have the CCS credential, I would definitely add it to your name at the top.
Right. And you saw that on the first resume where, you can list those credentials out. Mm-hmm. Yep, good point. Down here, I suggest cutting both of those out. I make a note that I'd probably bring this up to the top. You don't have your current degree that you're pursuing, so you want to list, even if you're in the middle of this degree, what you're pursuing right now. I did changes on your verb tenses. So again, if it's a job you're no longer in, you can change things to past tense. And I think I didn't even note this on here. I guess you're going to put your education first, but then you actually want something above this that's relevant experience, right? Like, what is the header for that category?
Mary, Rhonda says, I noticed that there is redundancy of working knowledge of Microsoft office
Hmm.
apps. Can this be reduced to one location instead of on each past history listed?
Yeah, that's great. So there's two comments on that. One, you might pull out technical skills altogether, and then you don't have to list it here. So if you pulled out and had a section that was computer and technical skills, you just pull it out and list it there. In addition, for that, or even other things, if you've already highlighted someplace a particular skill, no need to list it again every single time you've done it in 3 different jobs. So think about each of your jobs. What was unique? What were the highest level skills, the most related skills that were not already shared under a different position, a different job? I think that's great. I think you could, in some places, be adding in some numbers. You know, what was the size of the department, the number of records, the number of providers that you were doing things for sometimes fits in your profession. The other thing I did not talk about was how far back you should go. So there are different opinions on this. The rule of thumb is anything that's more than 10 years back, you might not include, or if you do, you might stop using bullets. The theory behind that is if it's been more than 10 years, the skills have changed so much and you've had higher level positions after that. There's always exceptions. Sometimes it's because you're applying to that place, you want them to know that you've worked there in the past. The exception might be it helps provide the story, the progression of jobs. I think in your case, you could include all of these, but you can also see as a reader, I'm going to look at your top 2 or 3, and then I'm probably just going to scan through the older positions. So that's another way to cut down the amount of information that you have. So maybe you include your current job, the one before it, the access service, and the manager, and then these bottom 2, maybe you do a supporting experience and just list those 2 with the dates, but no bullets at all. Again, you can kind of decide what you think fits for you. On an application, you often, like the formal application, you have to list every job you've had in 20 years, so it won't get lost altogether. But on the resume, you get to choose how far back you want to go. Okay? Okay, you get a visual of Sarah's. Okay, here's the original. Okay, so again, scroll through. So what do you notice? Anybody, again, willing to jump in? You can unmute or put it in the chat. Tao, I bet you've already written a few notes to yourself, right?
I guess I'll just jump in here. I was wondering with the way she has the bullets set up,
Mm-hmm.
is that okay? Even though it's in more of a paragraph format, or should they be more like a list?
It's a great question. My gut reaction here is it's overwhelming to see it this way. And it seems like just like a bunch of tasks that you did, so wire transfers or ATM deposits or bank products. So to me, this is a little overwhelming, even though it's still bullets. So I would reduce it instead to more standard bullets where you're focusing on the skill you had to use to do those things well that is most related to the new jobs that you're going to be applying for. So I'm going to pull up this one so you can see. And I give a shot at these, but then you always have to go back and think about it. So lead teller, manage, train, and coach new teller, how many of those? demonstrated strong attention to detail in what? And then you can list 3 of those out in a row, but you focus first on the skill. Provided excellent customer service greeting customers. Maybe you'd actually say, and resolved customer complaints, handled confidential information, ensured accuracy, utilize banking systems, including blah, 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 blah. Because I think the idea with that is your new job, you're going to be using different systems. But if they can see, wow, if you learn those systems, I bet you can learn our systems easily. I do like the accomplishments. Different people do this in different ways. I think I was thinking that you might do it this way. So you receive stellar teller, the perfect balance, maybe if that was part of that or something else, and that you did, adjust to banking mergers and conversions. It does show your adaptability and flexibility there. Now, when I changed it that way, you will probably have some room down here if you want to include internship in the future, projects within HIM, community or volunteer things that you've been part of. So I think you're going to have a little bit of room to do that. Now, I think the biggest change, and I broke out those technical skills specifically, moved education. I think you can, you had that big paragraph at the top, right? So how do we take that and change it to something that's feels more positive is what I would say, sort of this eagerness to move into the new one versus being frustrated with no change in the old one, which is the way I think it read before. So I think, and I made up number of years, but over 10 years of professional experience, eager to apply leadership ability, technical skills to a specific position or to health information management. And then a couple things about you: continuously recognized for attention to detail and embracing change. And then maybe some personality characteristics: loyal and hardworking with continued focus on learning and growth. Now, when we get down to these bottom ones, one could argue that's kind of too vague, but I think you prove it below. So I tried to take what you wrote and transfer it to more forward-thinking, positive, versus I'm leaving this because it's sort of a dead-end job right now, right? So how do you make that a more positive statement? I forgot to mention, I often move dates to the right. You don't have to, but it does make it sort of fill out the page. And I see here, this is bold, this isn't bold. So there's some things you want to go back and clean up to make sure you're consistent with bolding or not bolding, or the font size and style for each one.
I was wondering too about under the lead teller, her current position, should she use past tense, Mary, or keep it present tense with her verbs?
Oh yeah, that's right. It should be present. So manage, demonstrate, provide, handle, ensure.
And then and then Tao's asking, should I add a graduation date?
For your current, okay, so up here, it is nice for them to know when you anticipate that you will graduate. So you could, in fact, they don't even care when you start. They want to know what the end date is, just like you have down here. So you could have, whatever it is for you, August 2021. You can just list it and they know that's the anticipated, or you can say anticipated and then you list that grad date. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Especially for some of you, maybe you've been plugging away at a degree for 3 or 4 years. You don't need to show, you want to showcase when you finished it or when you will be finishing it, not the length of time it took you necessarily. Okay. Anything else, Katie, that you have or that people came in with? Okay.
I don't think so.
I'm going to pop and, oops. Oh yeah, I'll save, and I will each one of you, I'll send these out to you. Elise, I did yours a little differently because it came, is she here?
She actually had to take off, Mary.
Okay.
But I told her you'd email it to her.
I will. And I do want to share it with the group because she has a really interesting format that I want to share with you because I do think it can be really effective. She did a 2-column format. So you can see she has her name and then her contact information. And then on the right, she put her skills here. Now I would focus this again more on those technical skills, so get rid of a few of these. Then she has her credentials, and then her memberships, like in a right column. The left, again, I'd probably flip education around, but it's a really unique way to do it. So I thought you all might be interested in that as another option. I don't know if she did this on her own or she might have found a template to look at, but you can create this on your own. You just set up as 2 columns. I think this in your field could be really effective because you can line those skills out. I just think it looks nice. And you can see she used some color here. I would warn on doing colors that might not print well in case someone ever printed it, or that might not show, but I think dark colors can work. The only thing I noticed, let me go down to our education. So if something is falling on 2 lines, be intentional about where that break is. So I don't know if you can see here, she has like College of St. Scholastica, Duluth Min. I don't even know if you need to say extended studies online. You can, but I don't think it's necessary. I'd intentionally make that line 1, and then intentionally make line 2, Bachelor of Science, major in Health Information Management, minor in Computer Science, versus it breaking in a strange way. Or her St. Paul College, St. Paul, intentionally that's line 1, line 2, Associate of Applied Sciences. It's easier for the reader. You're already going to 2 lines, so you get to choose a break that makes sense there. Graduating with honors, Dean's List, GPA, it just tells more about the story. So for her, when she does things, she does them well, and I've worked really hard. That comes through when you know to honors and awards in that way. I actually did not edit the content in hers. I just wanted you to see the format. But I think in general, her bullets are nicely done. Supervise and coordinate all activities for staff of 20 plus hospital outpatient professional coding staff. That's nice. You get a sense of the number and what types of positions.
Yeah, as I'm reading them, Mary, they look really, really good to me.
Mm-hmm. It's a good sample of how you do that. I like this, work to bring all billing functions in-house during multi-layer implementation. You don't have to give me every detail, but it's like, oh, that's good to know that you've taken some like transition or change or process that happened and you know what that might look like. Served as subject matter expert for things billing, compliance, coding related. Good. People go to you because you're knowledgeable. Optimize the EHR for what, blah, blah, blah. Conducted all coding and documentation training for newly hired medical providers. I mean, I think, again, a lot of you will, but you've also in the past done some supervising and training, educating. So bring that out when you have those experiences. So think about this format. Might be something you like, might not be, but you can see lots of different ways to put it all together. Okay. I'm going to pause again. I know I was going to say we're getting to dinner hour, but that might be, depends what time zone you are in right now. Other questions? So far, the questions you've had are perfect. It reminds me to share things. So if you're thinking of it, ask now. Do you have a due date? They have to submit this to you?
I think it's Sunday. I gave them a week. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be working on it now. It's actually really good because, we just started classes last week. So the resume inbox is slower right now. Okay. So if you get it in, this is a great time. And we have 3 students that are all working on that inbox, 3 peers. So they'll get it to you really quickly. And then you might get it in and you're like, I also want Mary to look at it. You can send it to me even after the assignments due. That's not like the end of your resume writing. It's just trying to pull it. It forces you to pull it together right now because you have a deadline, right? Anything else you can think of you want me to cover?
Not really. I think I'm trying to remember. I don't have Brightspace pulled up right now, but I believe I've shared the job search handbook and if you could send me these slides and
yep.
I'll I'll share those with them and anything else, Mary, you want.
Good. I'll send the slides. I'll send the handshake challenge, our roadmap, the virtual fairs.
Perfect.
Did anybody just write off that's still on the line think that they're interested in the fair that's on September 25th? I assumed it would be 0, 1, or 2 people. So, okay. If you change your mind, let me know.
Yeah, this is Tracy. I'm interested in it.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm ready though.
Okay. So I'll regroup with you. I think the ready part will be you have to have a resume to sign up. But then after that, really, if you can be inquisitive and ask good questions, you'll be ready for it. So if you can get your resume, and I know like your life is probably very full, but if you can get that ready to go, we'll get you registered, and then we'll talk about good questions to ask an employer. Just inquisitive. Tell me more about the position. What's your hiring time frame? What are you looking for in candidates? What would my next step be? And I can guide you through some of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mary, how would it work if somebody's working during that time that it's
Yeah, you'd almost have to. I mean, there will be sessions that you can sign up for. They will either have times where you pop in for like a 10-minute session, just like a real job fair where you walk up to a table and ask questions. And then others will have like a 30-minute session where they're just talking. Here's what we do. Here's why you should work for us, and a variation. So you most likely would have to use a lunch hour or take a little bit of time off, unless you have a really flexible employer. I guess it depends what that looks like on your site.
So they're wondering, is there a schedule that they could maybe see in advance?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, I will send that to you. I think they're actually arranging it as we speak. So I will send you the schedule.
So I don't know if you want their names, but Monica and Tao are both interested.
And
I'm
Tracy,
interested
maybe?
too.
Okay, who is the C?
This is iTerm.
Oh, iTerm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, I will pull that all together. We actually have a staff meeting tomorrow, so to go over some of the details of that fair. Here's the interesting thing. Maybe you'll all appreciate this. So we changed all 4 of these fairs to virtual, and they're using 3 different platforms. So we're quickly having to learn 3 different technology platforms.
Oh my goodness.
So I need to make sure I give you the right information for this platform and what it's going to look like for when you sign up. So I'll do that tomorrow and get it out to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sometimes my head hurts from trying to learn too much right now. It's like, oh, there's a lot of change, right? We're trying to adapt in, so many ways.
All right.
Okay, good. I will send that all.
Thank yous and
yeah, you're
and all that.
welcome. Yes, let me know your questions, submit those resumes, and I'll get the job fair information out to you.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.